football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and I am joined by my trusty co-host, Mark Weber.
How's it going, guys?
And I just want to throw out there, before we get to what we're going to talk about, Dave Oster, not here for an Onside Kick. I feel like we're back in the olden days when I used to say that very often.
Yeah, we said it a lot. Some people would call it the golden age.
The golden age.
I mean,
of the Onside
I wouldn't
Kick.
go that far, but some people would.
Some people would, but Dave is not here, MIA, for this week of the show. But the show still goes on, Mark. Still got a jam-packed show. Jimmy Graham getting an air quote franchise tag from the New Orleans Saints. Jeremy Maclin and Riley Cooper both getting deals from the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll be talking post-NFL Combine and the new NFL salary cap for 2014. But we're going to start with Jimmy Graham. And I say air quote salary or air quote franchise tagged because he's tagged, meaning the Saints have the right to match an offer, but teams can still talk to him.
Yeah, it's the non-exclusive kind of franchise tag. If a team wants Jimmy Graham, they got to give the Saints 2 first-round picks. It's a really good deal for the Saints, to be honest. You still have Drew Brees. And I'm a firm believer that Drew Brees can make somebody pretty close to Jimmy Graham if you just go ahead and draft not a freak athlete, but a guy who is in that similar kind of style to Jimmy Graham. Maybe you get one of those old basketball players converted to football tight ends. Who knows? But I think for the Saints, I mean, what we're basically kind of talking about here is another team going to, take the stab and try and go for it?
Well, the most interesting part to it is not if a team is going to take a stab at Jimmy Graham. It's Jimmy Graham. You'd be stupid not to. The question, though, is, will an arbitrator feel like Jimmy Graham should be franchise tagged as a tight end, which is about $7.04 million? Or, hey, you know what? He's more of a wide receiver, so hey, New Orleans, if you're franchise tagging him, you're not going to pay that 7.04. You're going to pay $12.3 million for him.
And the Saints do not have a lot of cap space. They really don't. And increasing it by, increasing what they have to pay Jimmy Graham by $6 million, roughly. That's a huge hit to them who only have, like $8 million in cap space?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big hit. If I'm the Saints, though, I'm not upset about the possibility of getting 2 first-round picks. You're a team that's constantly in the playoffs, so you don't get that high of picks. Maybe you're only going to get a contender, trading and giving you, or not trading, but giving you those picks. So maybe you get them from the Atlanta Falcons, who will bounce back, especially if they had Jimmy Graham. So maybe, you have your, let's say 26, and then you get a 28, match those up, trade them away, get something even better. I like that if I'm the Saints.
See, and I mean, the biggest thing to me, and I know New Orleans Saint fans are probably sitting there going, you know what, I just want Jimmy Graham on my football team, because there's something about Jimmy Graham to where, and I speak of it more so as a fantasy owner, because when you talk fantasy football, the only tight ends that are for sure deals, Gronk and Graham.
Well, Gronk, if he's healthy.
Gronk and Graham, but those are the 2 big ones. And I mean, Jimmy Graham, if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, he is the most consistent wide receiver that we have seen in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. Because, like you said, Drew Brees has been a guy where it's like, you know what? Put anybody out there. Put any wide receiver out there. I'll make him look good.
Yeah, Jimmy Graham is phenomenal. He's probably the only guy who, in that receiving core, and we're talking about a guy who's actually a tight end.
Well, I mean, a guy that Drew Brees can say, hey, you know what, I'm just going to throw up there, go and jump for it, big fella.
We're in Chicago recording this podcast. If we know anything about wide receivers, it's throw it up there and just let him grab it.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's definitely a huge advantage to have. But if I'm the Saints, I'm not that upset if I lose Jimmy Graham. I'm not happy about it, don't get me wrong. And I think most people, and I think I'm in that same boat, I don't see Jimmy Graham going anywhere. I see him still being considered a tight end when they have to actually pay that money. I see no problems. Yeah, he might decide to skip out on some, work camps and things like that and just kind of get into the preseason later on after he has that nice long vacation. I can see that happening. I don't see him going anywhere, but there are some teams that would be incredible if they could get Jimmy Graham.
I know who you're going to throw out, but I'm having some of my own speculations go around in my head. But you throw out the team that you think should go after Graham first.
Well, I actually, there's 3 teams I think that should, but the team I really would love to see go for him is the Atlanta Falcons. That would be fantastic. In the same
Falcons
division.
are going to have around just over $26 million in cap space.
And of course, they still have guys that they need to re-sign to, but you just lose Tony Gonzalez. He's not coming back unless, maybe you guys are in contention for the Super Bowl.
Yes.
But it doesn't matter now because you could have Jimmy Graham. And that's such a slap in the face to the Saints to say, hey, we got your guy and we're taking the division back.
Well, and I mean, see, that's a thing where if let's say the Falcons did go and offer Graham a contract, I feel like it would be the Saints then to say, you know what? I don't give a crap if we're getting 2 first-round picks. We can't let him go to the other side of this division. We can't let him go to the Atlanta Falcons because Atlanta was 4-12 this past season. But to be honest, Roddy White was hurt. He wasn't like on the sideline for the whole season, but he was battered and bruised.
Shell of himself.
A guy that I had on my fantasy team that got injured and was out for the rest of the season, Julio Jones.
Definitely.
And then Tony Gonzalez was basically last season like, whatever. I'm not going to win a Super Bowl, so I'm going to phone it in. You put Roddy White, Julio Jones, Jimmy Graham, and a guy who came out last year in a 4-12 season, Harry Douglas. You put those guys together, Matt Ryan's going to have a field day. Especially with Steven Jackson in the backfield, who wants to make up for that poor first season in Hotlanta.
Yeah, it would be huge for them. And you talk about how the Saints are saying, we don't care about those first-round picks. We got to do it.
No. You can't let him go to Atlanta.
If he's going to be considered a wide receiver, the Saints might not have a choice. They might not be able to match a contract.
You can't, though. I mean, I know that you can't match that contract, but, I mean, you have to do whatever you need to do to make sure he doesn't go to Atlanta.
And that kind of screws over your team, to be honest, which really sucks. There is a point where you say, we just got to cut it. And I don't think the Saints are in a good enough position financially to be able to make much work. Unless they start making, some restructured deals or something. But, of course, then they just screw themselves, 5 years down the line or something. But whatever. Ricky, who is your big team that you think should do it?
I am actually on the fence because, first off, I thought to myself, and everyone's going to think I'm stupid, but I don't care. This is my first gut reaction. I was like, hey, what about the Cleveland Browns? A team that's going to have $61 million in cap space. They can give up 2 picks because you know what? Whatever quarterback we fucking draft never pans out, so why fucking even use it? Then you line up Jimmy Graham at the wide receiver spot with Gordon, and you have Jordan Cameron.
I don't like it.
Cameron, Graham, Gordon. All you got to do is get that quarterback, which is the most important key.
Yeah, the Browns have a lot of things that need to be fixed right now. You can't start losing draft picks.
Oh, I know. And that's why right away I thought about it, and then I'm like, well, you need that quarterback. A team, though, who has cap room that it wouldn't mind to say, hey, you know what? Maybe if we give up 2 first-rounders, it doesn't hurt us. The Green Bay Packers.
Definitely.
$35 million in cap space with the new 2014 salary cap. I mean, do they have a tight end? Yes, but can you say no to Jimmy Graham when you have Aaron Rodgers?
Well, plus I think you kind of the Packers are in a weird spot. And you can line him
up at wide receiver. That's his biggest thing.
And
he's a dual
they like
threat.
Moving people who, from wide receiver to another position, whatever. So the thing about the Packers, they need to do something to get themselves back because they won that Super Bowl. They had the 15-1 season, and then they're just kind of the good team that can't quite get it back.
And one of the most important things for the Packers is you have a few years before you have to pay your running back. Their running back, Eddie Lacy, was a rookie last year, and look at what he did.
Yep, and that offense can be so incredibly impressive again. Not that they're not impressive and they haven't been impressive these past few seasons, but it can be so lights out. There's no way you can stop it with this. Something else I like, though, and because it falls into the situation that we've talked about with the Seattle Seahawks of you got all these young guys you're paying dirt, basically. Why not get Jimmy Graham? You don't have any wide receivers on that roster that are that good besides Percy Harvin, who walked into a Super Bowl after not playing.
And you just recently cut Sidney Rice.
Yeah, you need somebody because Doug Baldwin's nothing to be excited about. Mm-hmm. So why not? I mean, and the thing about the tight end situation is, who cares? I mean,
like the thing about Jimmy Graham is you can't say tight end because he can play wide receiver. It's what we talked about earlier with them. The arbitrator's going to have to pick. Hey, do you franchise tag him as a wide receiver or as a tight end? What do you do?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's an interesting situation. He can do both, and that's great. He can be on the field at all times, no matter what your setup is going to be. And for the Seattle Seahawks, strike gold while you can right now. You're going to have to pay a lot of these guys eventually, and it's going to be tough for you. So go all out right now. Yes, that will make it hard in 1 or 2 years, really, when you have to pay guys and you got a whole bunch of money locked up in Jimmy Graham. But you don't need these draft picks right now. You already got yourself set up for the next, 3-4 years?
Well, and the one thing I kind of want to go back and take a little sidetrack, because while you were saying your next team, I was actually looking up the free agents by teams. And the Green Bay Packers, the team that I said should go after Jimmy Graham, I'm looking at their list of free agents, and I mean the names that jump out at me, that just jump off the page. James Starks, you got Jermichael Finley, and then you have John Jolly and B.J. Raji. I mean, and one of the things you can do if you're the Packers, who would we rather have, Finley or Graham? To me, it's a no-brainer, Jimmy Graham.
Without a doubt. And I mean, if you're the Packers, I don't think you really care about having B.J. Raji come back. The one good thing B.J. Raji did happened 3-4 years ago. No, I'm talking about when he actually helped the team.
The State Farm, the B.J. Raji Shuffle?
Yeah, he did that after he stopped being good.
The B.J. Raji Shuffle?
You just keep doing it, Ricky, but I'm going to ignore it.
It's basically the truffle shuffle with your shirt on.
Yeah.
It's basically what it is.
No, okay. Anyways, I was going to say, they should have made him take his shirt off.
But I mean,
no, we don't
and then you look at the team that you were just talking about, the Seattle Seahawks, and free agents, Sidney Rice, he's gone. They cut him. You have Golden Tate, and I mean, Michael Bennett, I guess, is jumping out there. Maybe Walter Thurman. This is not the year for the Seahawks where you have, major free agents.
Exactly.
Next year is. Next year's your Richard Sherman year.
Go get yourself another Super Bowl right now. Get Jimmy Graham, and that offense will be unstoppable.
But, I mean, I'm also looking at teams, and, I mean, I'm looking at the teams that are top of the list in cap that can give up draft picks and be okay. And, I mean, none of them, in my mind, sit as well as the Green Bay Packers, because I know the Green Bay Packers struck a little bit of gold with Eddie Lacy. But, I mean, besides Green Bay, a lot of the bigger end teams are lower on cap, and some of them even have tight ends in place. I would say that the Bears should go after him if Martellus Bennett didn't have such a good season last year.
Well, the Bears don't have the money to go after him either. The Bears do not. The Bears got about $8 million in cap space, not enough. And Martellus Bennett, I'm perfectly fine with him. Jay Cutler likes him too, so I think that's good. You can leave that alone. One of the teams that has more cap space that maybe could go for it, but I still think I'm not positive about it, would be the Indianapolis Colts. They got $39 million. That's more money than the Packers got to spend.
But they got Kobe Fleener.
Yeah, they do.
But yet again, if you're going to drop Jermichael Finley for Jimmy Graham, you can't say, well, I'm going to keep Kobe Fleener.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, it's not like you can't have – I mean, Kobe Fleener is not a fantastic tight end. He's a good tight end, not fantastic. So there's nothing wrong with having him, sit under a guy like Jimmy Graham, because obviously the talent level is a lot different between Fleener and Jimmy Graham.
And, I mean, I think the three teams that we listed, Atlanta, Seattle, Green Bay. Those are the only teams that would be okay with giving up 2 first-rounders.
Well, basically, yeah, it's got to be a team that's a contender for the Super Bowl
Which
and
all
just
three
needs
are.
that final push.
All 3, and I know the Falcons were in the playoffs last year, but I mean, you have a healthy Julio Jones and a Roddy White that wasn't a shell of himself, and you're in playoff contention. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. And I say, teams that need the final push. I understand the Seahawks just won a Super Bowl. They don't really need a final push, but Jimmy Graham certainly wouldn't hurt.
What about, and one of the things that was kind of circling around this week on NFL Live, and I'll kind of tie it in here. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Teams are reportedly asking Tampa Bay, like, hey, you know what, we're interested in Darrelle Revis. And Tampa Bay is kind of feeling offers, like saying, okay, we're not completely against it. If they can trade Revis and get something good, is Tampa Bay a team that says, hey, let's take a stab at Jimmy Graham?
I guess why not? I mean, why not take a stab at him? I think there's more things that need to be fixed in Tampa Bay to where you're not the team that we can spend a lot of money on Jimmy Graham and then do well. Especially losing Revis, who, obviously Revis Island in a Lovie Smith Tampa 2 type of system is going to be great. It's going to be great. It's got everything you could possibly hope for in that defense just waiting to happen. They still need a quarterback. The running back situation, we'll see what happens this year.
Yep.
So I think there's just too much to fix. Jimmy Graham's not going to do it.
Well, and I mean, now kind of moving over, we were kind of talking about a wide receiver position, but now to move over to the actual wide receiver position, 2 of the wide receivers for the Philadelphia Eagles getting contracts, and I think Jeremy Maclin, Riley Cooper, the biggest one, and to me the most questioning one, is Jeremy Maclin, because he signs a 1-year contract because he believes it's the best route to a long-term deal, where in an ESPN article he said, and I quote, "Here's the thing, I don't think it's a 1-year deal," end quote.
But it is. You literally signed a 1-year deal. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if there's hope that you might get signed again to a 5, 6, whatever year deal. You signed a 1-year deal. You could have gotten so much more money, so many more years, anywhere else. You chose to stay in Philadelphia for 1 year? I just don't get it. Something could go horribly wrong and your career could basically be over. And you don't get that much money out of it as if you had gone to a team that would have wanted you like the Jets and would have overpaid for you.
See, but here's the thing, and this is a little reason why I think Maclin, even if it was, and I agree with you, it is a 1-year deal. You can say whatever you want to make you feel okay and to tell yourself I made the right decision, but it's a 1-year deal. However, the reason why I feel like Maclin did make this 1-year deal was last year, new coach Chip Kelly has a system in place, a team you talked about like the Jets, not as successfully sound as the Philadelphia Eagles in recent history. I mean, Chip Kelly, 1 playoff appearance, 1 season, that's pretty good for the small sample we have.
Sure. I mean, it is. There's a lot of uncertainty, though. It could go badly next year.
It could.
It could fall apart. The Jets, at the same time, they could become, a team that comes back. They could continue to suck. So, I mean, you don't know in a lot of things like this, but I think having the security of a multi-year deal with big money, to me, just is so much better than, hey, let's hope this Philadelphia thing continues to be good and that they want me back. Because Riley Cooper, a guy who is, 5th string wide receiver previously, suddenly is this guy who deserves $25 million in I think it was 5 years.
Well, and he's not. Riley Cooper and Jeremy Maclin aren't the only wide receivers to get new contracts. You also have Jason Calise and Jason Peters. They're lesser wide receivers also staying. And I honestly believe that Chip Kelly's the reason. Because, there was an article that came out that basically said these new deals make players Chip Kelly guys.
Definitely, and that's what I think about the Maclin thing. When Maclin's only getting a 1-year deal, and a guy who, like I said, 4th, 5th stringer, Riley Cooper, suddenly is elevated to number 2 wide receiver, basically, Maclin's expendable. we don't need to get him back. He could have a breakout year, and they're saying, "Oh, we're gonna have to pay him too much. Let him go."
See, and another thing I kind of think about is think about the other wide receivers that are going to be big name free agents. The one that jumps out to me, one from a divisional opponent, Hakeem Nicks. Is Nicks going to be a giant? And I think Maclin was saying, hey, you know what? I'm thinking of this 1-year deal as kind of like a franchise tag to work out a long deal. I don't want to have to go up with or go against Hakeem Nicks for a big-time job. I'd rather just stay here in Philly where I know we're having success.
I don't
Knows the system, knows the playbook, and can work on that long-year deal. If it doesn't work this year, he's gone.
I just think it's delaying something. I mean, you're basically saying I don't want to make a decision now. I will wait and see. I just don't like it.
His heart's in Philly. What if it's just that simple?
If it's that simple, cool. Congrats to you, but it's not a good financial decision for you.
Well, from Maclin's standpoint, like you said, it's a bad financial move. But if you're Philly right now, you basically got Maclin on a franchise tag without using the franchise tag.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's such a good situation. Like we're saying, I keep bringing up Riley Cooper because just in the system, Chip Kelly made Riley Cooper look like a great wide receiver.
Well, he also made Nick Foles look like Peyton Manning.
Well, is Peyton Manning. I mean, he's one of the all-time greatest quarterbacks. He threw, 7 touchdowns in a game?
So did Peyton Manning.
Yeah, exactly. So they're basically the same level. Anyways, so I mean, it's just kind of working this system, and maybe they're not going to need you in Philly. That's why I don't like it. I don't like it for him because it seems to me like this system, and maybe it's just legendary, future Hall of Famer Nick Foles out there, makes these wide receivers who suck become good.
Did you see how that Chip Kelly system made LaShawn McCoy look?
It basically
made him
Chip
look
Kelly
like a baller.
system makes everybody look good right now.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I mean, that's the thing too. It's just the first time it's being used. Next season, maybe it's not going to be so good. I don't think so, but maybe it's not going to be so good.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing that I think helps the Eagles is look at their division. The Redskins suck. The Giants, I don't know. We could be on that bus, boom.
Yeah, it might be Super Bowl time for the Giants.
And then you have the only thing I want to throw out there about the Cowboys is the cap goes up this year. And you're still negative $16 million. So what are you going to do? What moves are you going to make?
You don't really make many moves. You got to restructure things, kind of get rid of some players, and figure out some money. But hey, Jerry Jones, he loves spending money, so he'll figure something out.
Jerry Jones is the best fantasy football owner ever.
Some would say.
Some would say he is the best fantasy football owner. But I mean, moving on from free agency, let's talk a little bit about the Combine. And this week, both Mel Kiper Jr. and Todd McShay came out with their own article following the Combine, talking about players that were on the rise and on the fall, offensive, defensive, and one of the names that kind of didn't jump off the page, but I took a look at, was quarterback out of Eastern Illinois, Jimmy Garoppolo, because this is a guy where you have Garoppolo, you have Fales. I'll even throw Derek Carr into the mix because, I mean, Fresno State is Fresno State. These are quarterbacks that are not the Johnny Manziels, not the Teddy Bridgewaters, not the Blake Bortles. Do you see, you got Kiper and McShay listing Garoppolo as an offensive riser following the Combine, talking about how the ball was jumping off of his hand and he's got zip on his short and intermediate throws and he has a great knowledge of the game in his interviews and that teams were impressed. Do you feel like some teams might take a look at him over a guy like Blake Bortles? Not Teddy Bridgewater, not Manziel, but like a guy like Blake Bortles. Why waste a pick on Bortles, go defense, and try to just take a stab on this developmental guy?
Here's the thing, though. I mean, maybe it's just the way I'm thinking about your question, but essentially, Blake Bortles is better than Garoppolo. That's just what it is. It might not translate to the NFL. One of them might have a better career than the other.
Okay,
Bortles is the better quarterback right now.
Let me clear up a little bit. I'm not saying, like, okay, boom, at the 8th pick, I'm going to take a quarterback. Who do I take? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you're a team. Okay, we have an option here. We could either take a guy like linebacker Khalil Mack. We could take Sammy Watkins, or we can take Blake Bortles. Where do we want to go? And if you were a top 10 pick and you had to make that decision, would you go with a guy like Bortles? Or would you say, maybe we can go with this linebacker here and then try to get a Garoppolo who looked good at the combine and in interviews has a good knowledge of the game?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. I don't trust the combine, really. I'm not one of those people that's really all into I mean, they're not wearing pads. They're basically just out there in their underwear having fun practicing. That's what the combine is to me. It's just...
Way to make it sound very sexual. They're in their underwear.
They are literally out there in their underwear. But yeah, it's just, it doesn't really matter much to me. I think a guy like this, yeah, he rises up, but he rises up to like 4th round talent.
Do you think Eastern Illinois, the only guy we've seen come out of Eastern Illinois that did great was Tony Romo.
Yeah.
Do you see a similar, not even Tony Romo-esque, just successful quarterback for Garoppolo?
Here's the thing. Here's what he needs. He needs to go to a place that has a quarterback who's going to be there for a few years. He's going to be the guy.
Is he the next Aaron Rodgers?
No, I don't think so. But at the same time, it's possible.
That's the situation you were painting.
That's what it is. They need to go somewhere not where he's not going to have any pressure to start anytime soon.
So like a Denver, like a New England?
Sure, but in Denver, he might have pressure to start next year.
Okay.
After this season.
So like a New England.
Sure.
Like a New Orleans.
Sure, definitely. These are places that he could go, not need to start, maybe get traded later on if he has great preseason games, Matt Flynn style.
Let me throw it at you this way, and this is kind of an inside Illinois question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If the Bears don't get McCown back, and you're late round, I'm talking like 4th, 5th, Garoppolo and Jordan Lynch are around, who would you rather have?
The bias in me wants Jordan Lynch. The person who's actually thinking about what's happening wants Garoppolo because he's the one who's going to probably actually be an NFL quarterback. Lynch will, if Lynch is playing in the NFL, he's going to probably be a wide receiver.
Which you told me that Jordan Lynch is going to be on.
He's going to be on Gruden's quarterback camp.
And I am so excited to see that.
I'm so excited, too. It's funny to me because I like Jordan Lynch. I like the NIU.
Well,
but he's going to be a wide receiver.
I'll be honest. Mount Carmel guy, so for me, a little hatred because I went to Brother Rice here in the Chicago area. But, I mean, he's a South Side Chicago guy from our neck of the woods. Goes to Northern, which isn't that far from us either.
Nope.
And is playing on ESPN, goes to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like he won some, I'm doing it with him.
He's one of our guys. We don't have one of our guys coming out very
Kind of
often.
like how I felt when Kafka went to the NFL, and then everyone went, who's Kafka?
It's like, honestly, how we were both excited when Jimmy Coy just got a tryout with the Chicago Bears because he was the quarterback of the school we went to college at. Mm-hmm. Literally, when we were there.
Yep. So,
that's cool. But, for Jordan Lynch, he's got a lot of ability as an athlete to do the things that, and I'm comparing him to guys that he's not as talented as. Russell Wilson, Colin Kaepernick, Johnny Manziel. He's got that type of frame. That's his play style.
Yeah.
He's going to run around. He's going to make plays by himself. But it's not going to be the thing that works out probably in the NFL. And I think that's one of the reasons Gruden wants him to go to the quarterback camp, just because it's one of those type of guys. He's kind of having fun with that type of quarterback. And there is the possibility that Jordan Lynch gets drafted in the 5th round. And, hey, maybe he competes. Maybe he does well. Maybe he goes to a crappy team that doesn't have a quarterback and he actually can start to show off in the preseason.
The one thing I fear, and this has kind of gone from Garoppolo to Jordan Lynch, but I want to throw this out there. One thing I fear for Jordan Lynch is he going to be the next Tim Tebow without the hype?
It's possible because plus he himself has said that he's a quarterback. He wants to play quarterback, and he sees himself as a quarterback. Now, what happens?
Sounds very Tim Tebow.
Yeah, exactly. What happens, week 1 of training camp when, the quarterback coach comes up to him and says, hey, what are you doing over here? You're over there with the wide receivers. What's going to happen in that situation? He's just going to go, oh, okay, I want to play in the NFL. I want to cash my first paycheck.
Well, it's like, look at Denard Robinson.
Oh,
he gets drafted by Jacksonville and says, whatever, I'll play whatever you want. Wide receiver? Okay, good.
Still, best quarterback on the Jacksonville roster, but going over and just going, yeah, fine, you want me to, be a running back? Sure, why not? Wide receiver? I'll do that too. I'll do whatever. And I think that's definitely the, attitude you should have. What was that? Oh, man, what was the ESPN commercial with the one player who he was talking about how he was a quarterback. They told him to change his position. The whole commercial is just, guys, take advice from me. Change your position. Just do it.
I've never seen that commercial.
I don't know. Someone down in the comment section below knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay,
we'll
have to look it up. But I mean, I pulled up right now the draft profiles for 2 quarterbacks. We're gonna do kind of like, because it's March now. So it's going to get to March Madness time. We'll do the same thing that the basketball guys are doing. Blind resumes, Mark.
All right.
I'm going to list 2 guys. You tell me, based off of these, not really stats, just like their arm length, their 40-yard dash, their hand size,
things that I love.
Who would you want to draft? The first guy, he stands at 6'2 and a quarter. He's 219 pounds. He has an arm length of 31. Hand size of 9 and a quarter, 4.8 40-yard dash. The second guy, 6'5", 232 pounds. Arm length of 32 3/4 and a hand size of 9 and a quarter. Who are you taking?
I'm going to go with quarterback number 2.
You took Blake Bortles.
There we go.
Over Jimmy Garoppolo.
And honestly, one of the reasons that really did it for me,
6'5",
just listening to that, was the height and the size. He can take
look at their hands. Their hands are the same. You can't talk. There was so much at the combine about how, this guy's got big hands. He's going to be a good quarterback. They both have the same exact hand size.
Yeah.
The only thing that's different, Bortles a lot bit taller. It's 6'5" compared to 6'2 and a quarter. And the arm length is like maybe just a bit further.
Yeah. And I think we got to remember, too, obviously, when we're talking about this, we're comparing FBS caliber talent to FCS caliber talent.
But, I mean, come on. Central Florida, the only team that Central Florida played against that was any good was Louisville. They beat them. Still
consists of better players than any team that Eastern Illinois is playing.
True.
So, I mean, that's just... We were watching highlights from Jimmy Garoppolo before we're doing the podcast, just to kind of see some stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's impressive, but a lot of those things, we got to remember, it's easier for him to outthrow the cornerbacks and the safeties at what schools are he playing? Illinois State? Things
Southern
like that.
Illinois, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Which, yeah, we get it. They're still talented teams, but they're not, the talent that other teams are going to have against them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you do have to bring that into mind. But at the same time, Tony Romo has had quite the successful career. No Super Bowls, only one playoff win. Yeah. But it's still a very successful career. No reason why yet another Eastern Illinois quarterback can't do that.
I feel like there is going to be a team that takes Garoppolo, and he is going to be a pleasant surprise for that team. I mean, the biggest thing that we've heard, just look at Manziel, for example. What's the biggest complaint people have about him?
His off the field?
His maturity. And I mean, you can relate that a little bit to knowledge of the game-ish. Yeah, he understands the game, but because of his maturity, how is he going to do things? Where Garoppolo, when teams are saying, hey, wow, I'm impressed by interviewing him and of his knowledge of the game, and on the tape he has the NFL arm strength to be successful.
Although they do question some of his deep ball.
Yeah, the deep ball can be fixed, though. I mean, as long as there have been quarterbacks out there that have made short to intermediate throws and have done fine.
Sure.
As long as you have a run game to support that, though.
Now, I have one question, though, with this. How much of this is them actually being that impressed and surprised by him compared to how much did they just not know about him? Was he just not on people's radars, and that's why they're walking out going, he's an actual option?
Yeah.
Instead of just,
because I think going into the combine, everyone was talking about if you weren't going to go Bridgewater, Manziel, Bortles, it was like, well, we got Carr and we have Fales.
Yep.
That's our two. And now people are beginning to go, whoa, Garoppolo's there?
Yeah. This
we
Eastern
can go
Illinois
with
guy?
this Eastern Illinois kid. And I bet Tony Romo's going, see, go with a guy like me, Eastern Illinois.
Now, wouldn't it be fun if he was drafted by the Cowboys?
I think that'd be pretty fun. That would be humorous.
Yeah, just get to sit and not be paid because they don't have any money. Just learn from Tony Romo.
Well, and one of the other things kind of to get off of the quarterback, and not the bandwagon, but just the quarterback topics, I feel like whenever we talk about combine, it's quarterback. The thing that surprises me when looking at the other offensive risers from the combine for both Kuiper and McShay, they list a running back by the name of Jerick McKinnon. And you might be saying, Ricky, who is this kid? Because I've never heard his name. He is a running back. He was a running back for the Georgia Southern Eagles. The reason why I am saying his name is because the only game where I even knew what he was doing was when he ran for over 100 yards on 9 attempts in a game against Florida where Georgia Southern won, where they didn't throw the ball once.
You know what this guy basically has to his advantage?
What?
That speed. That speed and his explosive ability. Why not? I mean, obviously you got to consider a lot of things, but this is a guy who we're assuming that the NFL wants to keep punts and return games. We're assuming they want to keep that. Yeah, we want them to keep that.
Instead of kicking it, we're just going to throw it.
Yeah, exactly. Or we'll just give it to you at the 20. Have fun, guys. Maybe this is a return specialist. I mean, I don't know. He could also, if you need a running back, maybe you go for him. But this, to me, sounds like someone who could be a great return specialist.
So I'll be honest. I only heard his name in that Florida game where, looking at the stats now, they did throw 3 passes, but didn't complete a single pass. Ran for over 400 yards in the game, and they won by a score of, 26-20. And this guy, McKinnon, ran for 125 yards on 9 carries in that game. That's the only game I know from him.
Yep. Yeah, but I mean, basically he just, apparently, if you get a guy like this, what you're going for is you're going for the explosive ability, and that's what you want in your returner. So go for this guy. Get him as a returner. Honestly, in Chicago, we could use this guy. Devin Hester's basically done.
Mm-hmm.
We're over the Devin Hester thing, all right? Fantastic. I love you, Devin Hester. You got the records. Fun. You were the one bright spot in our Super Bowl loss.
Mm-hmm.
But, let's move on. Let's get a guy like McKinnon.
Well, and the last thing I want to mention for Combine, unless you have anything that you'd like to talk about, is there are 2 guys in the defensive section of risers and fallers that I think relates closely to the Chicago Bears. And I know for those of you who are new to the podcast from Chicago, Mark's a Bear fan. I might not be a Bear fan, but I'm a Viking fan, and I know the Bears very well. A riser from the Combine for Kuiper and McShay, Bradley Roby, and then a faller that they list on the defensive side, defensive tackle from Florida State, Timmy Jernigan. And I mean, Jernigan's been a guy in mock drafts where everyone's like, Bears need to take him. But let's say the Bears don't re-sign Tillman. If he's there at their pick, should the Bears go with Roby?
It's interesting because for the Chicago Bears, it's balancing. The whole defensive line needs a lot of work. The whole backfield needs a lot of work. The defense has a lot of issues. So which ones do you care about more? You got to remember right now in the NFL, and especially going against Matthew Stafford, going against Aaron Rodgers, and possibly new quarterback in Minnesota, it's all about rushing the passer. You got to get to the passer. Something the Bears couldn't do.
So you're
last
leaning
season.
towards Jernigan.
I am, and I know they have him as a faller.
Well, okay,
but
just reading what they have, they're basically having him as a faller. They right away say he didn't have a bad combine, but the thing that was bad about him was that he didn't have a certain area, a certain drill where he jumped off the page. He didn't have that, and then to me, you take that and you add it to a guy in the national. I've said this before, and you guys might get sick of me saying this, but I'm going to say it again. You're in the national championship game against Auburn. It's in the fourth quarter. Auburn's driving down the field, and you're on the sidelines because you're out of breath. Get the fuck out of here. You shouldn't be playing football.
he was tired.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, Clowney, same thing. Clowney, number one
Oh,
possible.
I know. Clowney, too. Clowney, see, but the thing about Clowney was he didn't give a shit about this season because he wanted to come here last season. So that's the disclaimer on him. With Timmy Jernigan, it's you got so fat in the month before the national championship game that you couldn't stay on the field. Now you have this, I'd go Roby. Because, and yet again, I'm a little biased because like I've said in past podcasts, I'm an Illinois guy. I have seen Roby all season, and I like what he can do. I like what he does on the football field.
You know what scares me about Bradley Roby? He sounds like Devin Hester 2.0.
Why?
Fast guy, great ability to change direction.
Yeah, but they also say that he's got good strength.
Sure, that's cool.
Hester didn't have good strength.
No, he didn't. But those first
and
two
this
things
kid
scare
can
me.
actually catch the ball and can make hits and tackles. Hester can't.
Those first two things, when you're talking about his great speed and his ability to change directions, it just puts Devin Hester in my mind, and I go, oh, failed cornerback, failed wide receiver.
No. Roby is not the next Devin Hester. And I'm only saying that because I've seen Bradley Roby with my own eyes watching his Ohio State Buckeyes completely embarrass my Illinois Fighting Illini. This kid is the real deal. And I feel like he could be just as good as Justin Gilbert, the cornerback out of Oklahoma State that is obviously going to be the first corner off the board in the draft.
Definitely.
Roby could be that. He could be that good in the NFL.
Yeah, and he's projected to be a top 15 pick. That's in the Chicago Bears range, just barely.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see. I think we need more help getting to the quarterbacks than we do actually at, we got, let's all remember, we got Chris Conte back there, so we're good to go. No
Chris
worries.
Chris Conte, the guy who can't read a coverage, right?
The guy who doesn't listen to the play call and just
hey,
guesses.
Oh, he's behind me. Oh, he's behind me.
Just guessing on that
one. Is that a green jersey behind me? Nah, I'll just let it go.
No,
I don't think that was my spot.
I'm not worried about this.
I did forget about the last thing I wanted to say about the Combine because I forgot we talked about him last week. Guess who was a defensive faller?
See, I don't...
Michael Sam.
This one is stupid to me because we're talking about a defensive faller because they're saying he might go down to the 6th round. That's where he was basically projected. He was they like to say 3rd to 5th, but that's a little generous. He was going to be a 5th or 6th round pick, maybe 4th, but 5th or 6th round pick. So to call him a defensive faller is a little silly, I think. It's just the fact of what I said last week that people, and I know this is obviously written by people who know football,
yes.
But people who don't know football that well and just keep hearing the name Michael Sam are going to be surprised when he's not a top overall pick.
Oh my God, why is he falling?
Honestly, people will probably be surprised if he's not one of the top 10 picks because they've heard his name so much. So he's going to be taken the 5th or 6th round, but no surprise. That's where he needs to be taken.
And the last thing that we're going to talk about today on the podcast, we kind of mentioned it a little bit when we were talking about Jimmy Graham and Jeremy Maclin and the deals going on. The salary cap for 2014 is in. The team with the most cap was going to be the Oakland Raiders, $66 million.
Got a lot of free agents to sign, though.
The team at the very bottom, the Dallas Cowboys, negative $16 million. They are one of two with negative cap space. The Pittsburgh Steelers are the only other team with negative cap. They have -5.
Yep. And the Steelers, they need some help. They definitely need some help. They're not a team that should be in the negative right now. That's really rough for them.
But the one thing that kind of after looking at this cap, and it kind of really makes sense to me. There's a headline of an article out there on ESPN that says Houston Texans are going to be thrifty in free agency, and I look at just over $9 million cap space. Yeah, that's why you're thrifty, because you only have $9 million.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a tough situation. I mean, you got teams like the Oakland Raiders, who are a complete mess, who have $66 million. That's a lot of money. Yeah, you got a lot of guys to re-sign, but really, how many guys from the Oakland Raiders last year do you really want on your team next year?
Terrell Pryor?
I guess.
Maybe.
I guess. I mean, yeah, he had some fun times out in the preseason, but he didn't last long.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah, things like that. Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, teams that aren't that good. Even the Miami Dolphins got a good amount of money. And Miami Dolphins, of course, they got a lot of guys to re-sign as well, or at least they got a lot of free agents, whether they re-sign them or not. But, yeah, there's a lot of those teams that we all know aren't that good. And
the Vikings, $35 million. I'm looking at that and going, yes, that's good. It's green. Yeah. It's better than the Bears, who have 8.
Yeah, but, I mean, I guess the problem is...
But how much money did you throw at Cutler?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm pretty sure the thing about the Cutler deal is that's not. They got the ability. They gave themselves the ability to play with that money, so I'm not as worried about that. Although we aren't in that great of shape for that defense.
The thing I do like about, and I'm going to go back to, of course, because I'm a Vikings fan, that $35 million that the Vikings have. The reason I like that is because, first off, Coach Zimmer. He's being a real straight shooter with Christian Ponder, and I fucking love it. He told Ponder this week that, hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you right now. We're going to draft a quarterback somewhere in the draft. I'm not saying we're going to take him with the 8th pick, but we're going to draft a quarterback, and we're going to sign a quarterback in free agency. The job is still yours, but you're going to have to prove it. You're going to have to win it. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to give you the job, and I'm just telling you that we're going to do this, where Ponder's basically sitting there saying if he's not started, if he's not starting, he wants to be traded.
Yeah, which is a great way to go into camp there and go into the offseason. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of messy. If I'm a Vikings fan, which I'm not.
I'd rather have Zimmer say, hey, we're not naming a quarterback yet.
That's
except
good.
For Leslie Frazier, who now would be saying, shit, we have to name a quarterback, don't we? I guess we'll take this guy. We'll take Ponder over here. Ponder, that's his name.
Apparently, he's got a, what was that? It was like a Chicago accent. It started almost New Yorkish, went to Chicago. But he's from all over the place. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I just don't like it because for me, when the talks come about Mark Sanchez, that's nothing to be excited about. With Christian Ponder's not going to be your quarterback day one. We know that. We can get over that. He's going to cause some problems. He's going to get traded away. Maybe even cut. Who the hell knows? So, I mean, you basically are hoping that number 8, you get a good quarterback, or second round, there's somebody that they still like who's going to be good.
I'm praying that Johnny Manziel falls to us, but I'm not.
It's not going to happen.
I know it's not, Mark. I said I'm praying.
Don't be excited. Don't.
I said I'm praying.
Don't even pretend to be excited.
You know what I will say, though, and I'm kind of happy, but not really, because Christian Ponder didn't pan out either. When Christian Ponder was drafted, I was one of the guys that was furious that the Vikings took him and not Colt McCoy. Because I loved Colt McCoy coming out of Texas.
Well, neither one of them's anything to be excited about. So.
Loved Colt McCoy coming. I had like a huge man crush on Colt McCoy. To be fair, though,
for Colt McCoy, he didn't get a fair chance. He got 1 year.
It's the same thing. Brandon Weeden didn't get a fair chance either.
No. Both guys, I mean, no one on the Cleveland Browns get a fair chance. I mean, Chud, we've still been talking about Chud.
The skid mark on the NFL, which is the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I wish that the Cleveland Browns didn't suck. But that's just the thing. I mean, those guys didn't get a fair chance. Maybe with the second year, Colt McCoy starts to play better and actually can win some games. Who knows? Probably not, but who knows? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. For the Vikings, you got to get I mean, you don't have to get a quarterback, but you really want to get a quarterback at number 8. That's good. Or at least your second one, somebody you like, whether it's Derek Carr. I mean, I guess maybe fails, but I don't think so.
See, I don't know. Like, the thing about it is, I feel like if Bortles is there, we're going to end up taking Bortles. And for me, I'm sitting there going, because to me, everyone else might disagree with me, but I kind of have an idea that Blake Bortles is going to be similar to Christian Ponder.
If he's drafted by the Vikings, I feel like he has to become Christian Ponder 2.0.
Where I'm just sitting there going, great, we got Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying to myself. We're really, really what I want, my dream, my pipe dream, you could say, is Johnny Manziel.
But I mean, who doesn't want Johnny Manziel?
But Johnny Manziel is going to be, if he's not taken by Houston, he's not going to be taken by the Rams. He's going to be taken by Jacksonville.
Assuming nobody trades up.
And if he's not taken by Jacksonville, he's going to be taken by the Browns.
Yep.
And if he's not taken by the Browns, the Raiders would be absolutely stupid not to take him.
Well, I mean, there are some guys that have faster 40s than Johnny Manziel. So the Raiders got
the
their
ghost
priorities.
of Al Davis. See, right now, even if Bortles is on the board, I'm kind of in favor with the 2.0 mock draft still by Todd McShay. Take a guy like C.J. Mosley, a linebacker, because we need one. Why not take something? You don't have to take a quarterback with that number 8 spot. You don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you don't have to. But at the same time, it'd be nice to have a quarterback on that roster finally. It still blows my mind that
Hell,
team...
I wouldn't even be mad if the Vikings traded back. I'm saying traded back, though, not trading out.
Yeah.
Of the first round.
It still blows my mind a team with Adrian Peterson is not perennial, Super Bowl contenders. Adrian Peterson's incredible. Freak athlete.
Well, I mean, you gotta look at this. How good of a coach was Brad Childress?
Not a coach.
How good of a coach was Leslie Frazier?
Barely a coach.
That's why. It's kind of like how the Bears under Lovie Smith, you guys were good because Lovie Smith knew defense.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie Frazier, he was supposed to be a defensive expert, but our defense looked nowhere near what the Bears' defense looked like under Lovie Smith.
But, I mean, there's a lot of problems in that situation with the coaching, players, whatever. But it's just a team with the freak that is Adrian Peterson should be contenders all the time. Adrian Peterson carries the team. He put them on his back got them into the playoffs.
And that's why I'm going to throw something out here that we talked about earlier. I'm bringing it back. Who do the Vikings have as their offensive coordinator now under Mike Zimmer?
Nobody worthwhile, Ricky.
Norv Turner, a guy who can work with quarterbacks. That's why I'm saying we don't even need to go with a quarterback with the 8th spot.
Yeah, you do.
Go later. Even if we take a guy later in the draft, a developmental guy like Garoppolo, who can work with Norv Turner. Norv Turner can work with guys.
No, he can't.
Yeah, he can.
I'm just saying things to make Ricky mad.
I don't know why you're so low on Norv Turner.
No, I'm not low on Norv Turner. I just want to make you mad.
Norv Turner, to me, was the best hiring that the Vikings... That was a better hire than Zimmer himself.
Well, because Zimmer wasn't anything that I was excited about. But, definitely. The only problem I have with that, if you get a guy like Garoppolo, you still don't have a starting quarterback. I mean, and then...
Depends on who we take in free agency. If we got Mark Sanchez, at least Mark Sanchez could start.
Yeah, but come week 7, week 8, when Mark Sanchez plays like Mark Sanchez, everyone's going to be saying, hey, what's that quarterback that we took 4th round again?
Yeah, but look at this. How did Mark Sanchez play when he had a good LaDainian Tomlinson in back of him?
When he had a good defense, you mean?
Yeah, well, look at Zimmer's a defensive guy.
Defense sucks right now, though.
If Zimmer at least gets that defense decent, AP becomes AP. Mark Sanchez can play like he did when he had a great LaDainian Tomlinson behind him. Mark Sanchez could at least do the job and be a placeholder.
I guess, but the only thing we remember from Mark Sanchez lately is that he sucks.
Butt fumble.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
But don't ask... I'm trying to think. Not Beetle.
Beard. Beardy.
Mangold. Don't ask Mangold about the butt fumble because he
doesn't like it.
Funny.
It's not a funny joke.
Funny.
To me, it's just the defense. The thing that made LaDainian Tomlinson great. The defense is what kept them in games because that offense wasn't that fantastic. Defense made them be able to compete. Is the Minnesota Vikings defense going to compare against the Bears, against the Lions, against the Vikings?
I mean, it depends on what we
Packers?
do in free agency. If we, let's say with that 8th pick, if we draft a guy like C.J. Mosley, there's a linebacker, a good linebacker.
Yeah.
How well have Alabama players translated to the NFL? Oh, wait, we just talked about one earlier in the podcast in Eddie Lacy.
Definitely. Yeah, so I mean, it's possible. I don't think that's a great route to be, and I'm not excited. If I'm in your shoes, I'm not excited at the thought of Mark Sanchez being on my team.
Let's just put it this way. As a Vikings fan, for the first time in many seasons, I'm going into the draft with like, hey, you know what? We might not make a stupid move. We might make a smart move. Things might actually turn out.
You might make a stupid move, though. Don't get too excited, Ricky.
I'm more excited than I have been. Hey, you're a Bears fan. You know plenty about bad drafts, Mr.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we had Jerry Angelo. Yeah, I know a lot about bad drafts. And even
Mr. Gabe Karimi.
I like Phil Emery. I like Trestman. But when it comes to Phil Emery, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And he's a smart guy. But those first-round picks...
Don't you hate those guys, though?
Those first-round picks are always so bad. We can do 2nd through 5 so well.
So Kyle Long was a bad pick?
Kyle Long actually has worked out. That's been good. But when he made that pick, it was like, what the fuck are we doing? I still stand by the fact we could have drafted Kyle Long in round 2. We could have gotten him round 2 and then gotten someone better in round 1.
Just the way you're like, the fuck is he thinking?
I still remember being like, an offensive lineman from Oregon who is a defensive lineman who's not really a defensive lineman because he's really not even really a football player. It blew my mind. It worked out, but I still believe we could have gotten him in round 2.
Yeah, and I can't wait because I mean,
and also don't forget Shea McClellan.
Yeah,
that happened.
That was a good pick.
No,
though.
it wasn't. He's not even a defensive end anymore.
Yeah,
now he's a linebacker.
At least he's still on the team, right?
I guess, but he's been
panning
a backup.
Out that well.
He's been a backup our first round pick was a backup from day one.
Well, you also had that. I'm trying to think who were the it was the year Rex Grossman was drafted. The group of Florida players that you guys drafted.
Those days don't exist.
Who were the other Florida players?
Those days don't exist.
Mark doesn't even want to talk about it. That's how bad
the
it was.
The Rex Grossman era never happened.
Sexy Rexy never happened?
No, never happened.
Unleash the Dragon, Mark?
We never went to the Super Bowl.
Unleash the Dragon.
We won in 85. We haven't been there since.
But before we wrap things up, are there any other teams with salary cap, the new salary cap, that you're excited for? Maybe not excited for? Anybody we missed?
Well, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals, obviously, they got $29 million. That's a lot to work with for a team that isn't that far if they can just figure out that offense.
They lost their coordinators.
Yeah, but their offense sucked. Their defense was
Red
good.
Rocket.
Yeah, exactly. It's not good. There's nothing to be excited about when you got Andy Dalton out there.
The redheaded stepchild.
I mean, it's not going to get better.
Trade for the All-American.
They should. Anything could be better than Andy Dalton. But yeah, I mean, I think they have the potential to make a splash. Obviously, with $29 million, not that many free agents.
I think it'll be interesting to see what Cleveland and Jacksonville do with their boatloads of fucking money because those teams just suck. Year in, year out. That's what I'm looking forward to. The teams like Oakland, Cleveland, Jacksonville, who are in the top 3 of salary cap for this upcoming season. But that's going to do it for the Onside Kick this week. I want to hear all your opinions down low in the comment section. We love talking to you guys about the sports that we bring to you every week. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/The Onside Kick. Tweet us at Onside Kick Reel. And as always, have a good day, everybody.